A like target for this video. This is at 1 to watch for every single Premier League side. If we can get 4,000 likes on this within the first 24 hours, then I will do my season predictions live on Wednesday. So you've got 24 hours. Let's get moving. Let's smash that target. Also, we're trying to get to 200k, less than 10,000 subscribers away. So if you're feeling generous, hit the subscribe button because you're going to want to, if you don't want to miss out on that live on Wednesday, if it was to happen. Right, let's dive into this. Starting off, of course, with Arsenal. So with Arsenal, it's got to be William Saliba for me. I think he's ready to explode on the Premier League. In terms of his hype, it just hasn't really carried across to England, of course, because he hasn't played a game for Arsenal. But now is the time. He had the season of his short life in Marseille last year. He was absolutely fantastic. The guy's got, French senior international caps now. And he's a player that comes across, and I know he's going to break, or he's got to break, a defensive partnership that's pretty solid there, of course, with Ben White and Gabriel. But he is a really, really special player. In terms of progressive carries last year, 6.36 per 90, 4.48 progressive passes per 90 as well. Extremely high figures. And it points towards him being one of the most press-resistant defenders out there right now. And a player who, with the ball, and this is so important when it comes to centre-backs now, especially for dominant teams, he's brilliant. So if his relationship with Arteta is good, has been rebuilt, watch out for him this season. It could be a huge breakthrough season for him, and it could take Arsenal up another notch because it is like a new signing. Aston Villa, Leon Bailey could be a player who completely reinvents himself. I mean, he's had problems with injuries. I think he's a really, really exciting player. You've got to remember, of course, the England national team were desperate to get him to play for us. And obviously that didn't happen. But more importantly, when it comes to Aston Villa this year, the two formations that they've been using, first of all, you've got a 4-3-1-2, which is very narrow. And you would think that wouldn't work with Leon Bailey. But him playing in one of those attacking sort of striker roles, maybe even as an advanced forward, is something that could really transform him and get him into a settled spot when it comes to Aston Villa. The other thing to remember is in pre-season, they played against Man United, weren't great in the first half with this narrow formation. Second half, brought on Leon Bailey and played a normal front three, and he was fantastic in that game as well. So regardless of the tactical formation that Gerrard goes with, I think Leon Bailey could have a massive say in their season. Bournemouth, Jadon Anthony, I'm really excited to see how he deals with being a Premier League footballer now. I really enjoyed what he was about last year. He burst on the scene, and Scott Parker, I spoke to him myself, and I don't think he was expecting Jadon Anthony to do what he did, but he was very, very complete in the Championship. 8 goals, 7 assists last season, a lot of end product to his game, and created a whopping 16 big chances last season as well. So it demonstrates that, he was an excellent member of this Bournemouth squad, and now coming into the Premier League, that sort of Raheem Sterling vibe about him. I'm intrigued to see how he takes to it. Brentford, Yohan Wissa. He showed real glimpses last year, but didn't really get a proper crack of the whip. He only had 14.390s over the season. Not totally sure what that was for and the reason behind that. It makes you kind of feel like he's a bit of a luxury player. But when he came on, he did score goals, 7 goals to his name last season. Goals against West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester, Liverpool. These aren't easy teams to score against. And actually ended the season with a non-penalty XG of 0.83, which is madness, really, for a player in this Brentford side. The quality's there. He's got an eye for a goal, an eye for a spectacular goal. Can he, nail down a starting place in this team? I'd like to see it, and I'd like to see what happens when that happens. Brighton, Julio Enciso, 18 years old and could be making waves already for Brighton, who made a couple of signings up top, and I'm intrigued to see how this guy gets on. Because despite being 18, this guy seems like a really exciting prospect. Signed for a fee roughly of around 10 million from Libertad in Paraguay, and in the Paraguay Premier Division, scored 11 goals in 14 appearances, as well as making waves in the Copa Libertadores. The thing for me is this going to be too much of a jump? But I think the reason why he is a one to watch is because, especially as an attacking player, for him to come in and to have a real chance of starting for Brighton, they must see something pretty exciting about him. And I'm excited to see if he can take it to the Premier League like a duck to water. When you think of that, you think of Fabio Silva and you think it probably won't work out. But I'm intrigued to see if this guy from Paraguay is going to come in and light it up for Brighton, because they're very smart when it comes to their recruitment, especially in South America. Chelsea, I'm going to go with Raheem Sterling. I think this could be a really, really smart bit of business for Chelsea in terms of bringing him in, because they haven't really ever replaced Hazard, certainly not his output. And I think in Raheem Sterling, that's the thing that you get. He looked fantastic against Charlotte FC, which obviously isn't, the real barometer for if he's going to be good. But the real barometer is the fact that in the last 5 seasons, he's scored double figures every single season. So for him to come in and provide that goal threat. Also, I think with him, he's a sort of bigger fish in this Chelsea pond than he probably is at Man City. And I think that's going to be great for him. And I think he's going to absolutely thrive in that scenario. Time for Crystal Palace, and it's time for my boy, Eze. Oh, you beautiful, beautiful specimen, you. Had a sticky season last year. Obviously, that was coming off the back of what was a really exciting debut season for Crystal Palace, where he excited all fans, which we knew he would because he's beautiful and elegant with a lovely smile. He comes into this season and you just feel like it is starting to click again. Had a great performance by all accounts against Ipswich. I saw him against QPR and scored a cracking goal in that, and he's playing in that number 10 role. I think Crystal Palace are going to be so exciting to watch this season, and if he is fit and firing, I think his composure is going up year by year, and by that I mean in these finishing positions. And I think this could be a really, really exciting season for him this year, and I just hope he can stay away from injury. Everton, Lewis Warrington, arguably better than half of the senior midfielders that Everton currently have on their books. He's a product of the Everton Academy. He was at Tranmere last year. He's got a bit of a Jack Wilshere vibe to him. He can play in the 6, in the 8, in the 10 as well. And there's definitely an opening in that 8 position for Everton, I think, at the moment. And I think the thing that makes him a real one to watch this year is the fact that if that midfield does disappoint, Lampard isn't afraid of bringing through the youngsters, as you saw with Anthony Gordon last year. And so with the likes of Stanley Mills and Lewis Dobbin coming through as well, there's a few academy products that can excite the Everton fans this year in what feels like quite a precarious one. Fulham, João Palhinha. I'm excited to see how a top Liga Portugal player does in the Premier League. At 27, you've got a guy here who's come to Fulham, and I think we're all a little bit confused as to how they've been able to get it over the line. And he's exceptional as a ball-winning midfielder. I think the important thing is going to be the players that are alongside him, and if that facilitates him, or if he feels like a bit of an isolated figure there. Obviously, a lot of the pressure will be on his shoulders to help keep that midfield intact and make sure that they don't lose it as well. This is a guy who's not just Premier League quality, he's top 8 Premier League quality as well. So for Fulham to have him is really, really strong. He's a player that can average 3+ tackles per 90 in a game, and so that might safeguard one end of the pitch. And I think Fulham fans will be hoping that with the amount of goals that they scored last year, and him as that security in terms of winning the ball back defensively or being a big part of that, this will help them address previous problems where they weren't scoring enough and conceding too many, and get to a point where they just about score enough and just about concede enough to stay in the division. Leeds United, and I'm going to go for Luis Sinisterra again. I went for him in the FPL asset video. Go check that one out when you get a chance. But he's a box office winger who is capable of winning games on his own. I think he should really work well on that left-hand side of this Jesse Marsch setup. I just really want to double down on him, but I think he's just so exciting. You look at the dribbling numbers that he has last year. This year coming into it at Leeds, they're going to be a direct vertical side. We're going to move the ball really quickly, and he will be taking players out of the game. I think in terms of battles on the opening day, keep an eye out on the battle between Luis Sinisterra and whoever his opponent is for Wolves, probably Nelson Semedo, because I think that'll be a great signifier of how he might get on this year. Leicester City, I'm going to go for Patson Daka, who kind of dipped his toe in last year. I think there were moments where he kind of saw the quality, saw the ability for him to take over from Jamie Vardy. And if you look at the transfer window with Leicester City at the moment, it does feel like there won't be a new attempted replacement for Jamie Vardy. The sort of central forward positions is probably one area where they've actually got the most depth for them at this moment in time with Iheanacho and Patson Daka. But I think Patson Daka will get more minutes this season. And coming from RB Salzburg into the Premier League, he had that first year to acclimatise, and now is the time to explode. Not literally, that would be a waste of a player. Liverpool, it's got to be Darwin Núñez. I mean, it's a very difficult one for him either way, and if he thrives, then wow, hats off to him. I'm not even wearing a hat. I'll go find a hat, put it on, and then take it off. I think either way, he is one to watch, isn't he, when it comes to Liverpool, because it's such a big signing to come in and we just don't know how it's going to go. So if it goes well, it's interesting. If it doesn't go well, that's also interesting in terms of how he will handle it and how Jurgen Klopp will handle it. Does Jota come in and take his place? Does that occur? Do you just stick with him? But at this moment in time, it feels like, yes, there's 4 goals in a game against Leipzig, but there's also technical areas that need refining right now, and which is understandable when those changes have been made and you've got such a key cog in Mane leaving the club and someone coming in. Regardless of who that player was, that would have been the player as one to watch for Liverpool this season. But it will be interesting, and it does feel like a lot of pressure on him, doesn't there?
No, he's brilliant. No, I can't take any form of nearly criticism.
Man City, Julian Alvarez is a player that no one is talking about, but I think he will cause a bit of a stir this year just because he's kind of under the radar. Came from River Plate. I think it was in January, right? He's not the marquee signing. Haaland, of course, is. But expect him to play a decent amount of games this year. Raheem Sterling, of course, has left. And in terms of that right side, yes, you've got Bernardo Silva. Yes, you've got Cole Palmer as well. But I think Julian Alvarez can play on that right-hand side. He recently played 70 minutes against Club America as a central striker as well, which of course he can do. And this guy has got a pedigree. You know, he scored 54 goals and assisted 31 in 122 matches for River Plate. He's pretty bloody awesome. So expect him to be a player that, again, and no one's talking about, but then arrives and scores 10 goals this season. I would not be surprised. Manchester United, it's got to be Jadon Sancho for me. He looks rejuvenated. He looks incredibly sharp in pre-season. So far has scored 3 goals in the 4 pre-season friendlies. And someone who's on that left-hand side, which he sort of kept getting put on that left-hand side. It didn't feel right with him, did it? But on the right wing, which is where he should be playing, I think under Erik ten Hag, the big word here is freedom. I think that's what he does. That's what he did at Ajax. He gives those attacking players that freedom. And I think Jadon Sancho is one of those where there might be other players who, okay, just tell me what my job is. They don't want that freedom. Jadon Sancho does. The ability to stay right, but then maybe come into central areas as well. It's certainly someone that we're going to keep an eye on the channel and deep dive on at some point and give it that bit more focus. I think he is one of those players that will really enjoy Erik ten Hag, and I think Erik ten Hag is going to really enjoy Jadon Sancho this season. Newcastle United, Bruno, of course, is one that you know I love, and I think he's going to have a really exciting season. It's going to be interesting to see where he plays and if that starts to evolve at all, which we kind of thought it would do when he first came through the door in terms of being a 6. But I'm talking about the wrong player here. Sven Botman is the one to watch this season. Looks like he has it all at the age of 22. He will be a signing that Newcastle fans in 15 years' time go, oh, Sven Botman, what a player he was. Look, he's great on the ball. But the defensive side of him is super, super impressive. And that's so lovely to have, isn't it, when you're a football fan watching your team. 6'4", centre-half. In terms of aerial success rate, last year, 66%. 65% when it came to ground duels as well last year. So he's got that defensive brain. He has the stature as well. Newcastle fans are going to love him. And again, you know, as a 22-year-old, is this the Vincent Kompany signing where he comes through the door? And as I say, you fast forward 12 years and you've got a 34-year-old who's won the lot with them. I think that's what Newcastle United fans are going to be dreaming of. Maybe it won't come to be that way, but it feels like it might, and it just feels like he's got a really, really high ceiling. Brilliant player. Nottingham Forest, Brennan Johnson, quick, confident, and he can finish. The guy's pretty deadly. Can he do it at the Premier League level? We're about to find out. I think the great thing for him is that he goes into this season, whereas before he might have gone, how many chances or opportunities am I going to get? Now you feel like you will get that if you think of the creativity that the crossing of Nico Williams will provide. You've got Awoniyi, who can provide that physical stature that Davies did provide last year to play him in, and Lingard, of course, as well, Lewis O'Brien as well. So much more than you might have wondered when it comes to Nottingham Forest in their first year back in the Premier League. And Brennan Johnson is deadly. Scored some great goals last season, loads of assists as well, and importantly on international duty for Wales, scored against Belgium and the Netherlands respectively. So I think he's going to have a really strong season. And yeah, I don't think I know what the total ceiling is for him, but there's no doubt he's a Premier League player, and that finishing ability is going to take him pretty far. Southampton, Sekou Mara, the perfect pressing forward for Southampton. He's 19, has come from Bordeaux. Very quick, mobile, diligent presser, very hard-working forward. Didn't score that many goals last year, just 6. So that's probably an area where it'll be interesting to see if he can cope when it comes to the Premier League, and will it be that little bit harder for him? But average 3.6 successful defensive duels per 90, which bodes well for the way that Southampton play. Tottenham, Bissouma could be the most important transfer of the lot of them, because if you think about the double pivot, and I think we spoke about it on the Fallout last year, where you had Højbjerg and you had Bentancur. Now, didn't offer a huge amount defensively, but created that sort of platform for the back three to spread out wide, the wing backs to push up wider and a bit fuller as well, which then helps the forward players as well. And in Bissouma, you can kind of see the Kante that Conte put together at Chelsea. He didn't put it together, you know what I'm saying. In terms of in that double pivot with Bentancur and Bissouma's ability to win the ball, but also to pass the ball and break lines that way, but also to break lines by carrying the ball as well. If Tottenham do something special this year, he will have had a special year, I have no doubt. West Ham United, Gianluca Scamacca, the attacker. Could be good in an ACCA. Let's see. It's going to be interesting with West Ham. With Mark Warburton, the ex-QPR manager, now as the assistant manager, and him having trialled 2 9s at QPR, you do wonder if they want to do, especially with the interest in Kostic from Eintracht Frankfurt as well. That would make complete sense as him as that left wing back for them, who's able to get on and get crosses in as well. Main reason I picked him, obviously a big signing for them, but also the role that he plays. I'm intrigued to see how that works out. But also the guy loves a long range screamer. So if West Ham are on the telly, chuck it on. You might just get to enjoy one of his 35-yard pile drive. And Wolves, and you're going to laugh, Wolves fans, because I swear every time I do Wolves, I just make sure it's Pedro Neto. But I have to do Pedro Neto because he's back, you know, and the injuries are hopefully behind him. And he is a really, really exciting player. And he's only 22, despite feeling like he's been around for quite some time. Scored against Deportivo Alaves and Besiktas in pre-season. Yeah, that means nothing, but also it means something, okay? And for Wolves, who've been pretty disappointing, and Jimenez, who's currently injured going into the start of the season, Pedro Neto could be so important at the start of the season, but of course throughout as well, because he does have that X factor. So there you have it, guys. One to watch for every single Premier League team. As I said at the start of the video, hit that like button. Can we hit that like target? It would be very, very cool. And of course, subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you don't miss out on the videos this week. I'll see you in the next one.